Welcome everyone to Fruits of the Orchard. Tonight we are going to be learning Parshat Ha'azinu, and we are going to concentrate on just one of the verses. Ha'azinu is one of the 10 archetypal songs sung through creation. Those who watched our video from last week, it was all about the many songs that Moshe Rabbeinu is involved with. We learned of the 10 archetypal songs. He's actually involved in 5 of them. And one of them is this, is Ha'azinu. At the end of Parshat Vayelech, God says to Moshe, teach this song to the people so that they learn it and it will be a witness to them. And so this week's Parsha is the song of Ha'azinu. And according to tradition, the entire history of the world from the creation till Mashiach comes is all included in this song. Everything is alluded to or hinted to in this song. So we're going to only look at one verse, and that is chapter 32, verse 8. If anyone wants to follow, I'll read it in Hebrew and then in English. So it says, B'handchel elyon goyim, b'hafrido b'nei adam, yatsev gevulot amim, lemispar b'nei Yisrael. That when the Most High, God on high, divided to the nations their inheritance, he did it, he separated the sons of Adam according to the number of the children of Israel. So I'll say that again. When God divided the people of the world and gave them their apportioned inheritance, he did it according to the number of Bnei Yisrael. So there's a very big question here, because the 70 archetypal nations were in existence before there was a Bnei Yisrael. But the verse is saying that when God divided up the nations into the 70 archetypal nations, the 70 archetypal languages, he did it according to the number of Bnei Yisrael. But Bnei Yisrael had not been born yet. So the whole question is, how do we understand this verse? So I'm going to give 4 different answers to this. 4 different answers how we can understand this. And here, the number of Bnei Yisrael that's being alluded to is the 70 souls that went down to Egypt. Because since there's 70 archetypal nations, they are divided according to the number of the eventual 70 souls, archetypal souls that went down to Egypt. So to understand this, what seems like a mixed up chronological order, but it's not, it's very purposeful. And so the first, we'll call it a proof, or the first source for understanding this is the actual first verse of the Torah. Bereshit bara Elokim et hashmayim v'et haaretz. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And Rashi says on the word Bereshit, usually the bet, be, means in. That's why in English we say in the beginning. But Rashi says that the bet here also means bishvil, for the sake of. And he brings 2 verses that have the word reshit in them. So he says, for the sake of Torah, which is called Reshit Darko, the first of God's ways, and for the sake of Israel, which is called the first of his produce. For those two reasons, God created the world. So here we see a source that the thought of Israel was in God's mind before he created the world. It was for the sake of Torah, that Torah would be revealed in the world. The Torah precedes the world. And the essence of the souls of Israel also precede the world. That's what Rashi is alluding to, for the sake of Israel. Then we have another midrash that says, when the thought of God arose to create the world, Yisrael Allah b'machshava techila. The thought of Israel arose in God's mind first. So this goes along with our first source, for the sake of Israel. So that's they go together. Then thirdly, in the second telling or account of creation, which begins, Eila toldot shemayim v'oretz v'ki baram. These are the generations of heaven and earth in their creation. And the second account, God in the Torah fill in the story of what happened in the Garden of Eden. First of all, the creation of human beings, which is already mentioned in the sixth day, but more material is given over. And then the whole episode in the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve and the snake eating of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and their eventual expulsion from the garden, is all told in the second account. So it begins, these are the generations of heaven and earth in their creation. So the word in their creation, Behi Baram, has a small hey. The letter hey is small in this word. And the sages say, don't read it Behi Baram, read it Be'avraham. Why? Because the exact letters of Behi Baram, when they're permuted, spell Be'avraham, with Avraham, for the sake of Avraham. And this little hey becomes the letter that's added to Avram's name to make him Avraham. And this occurred right when God makes a covenant with Avram, the covenant of circumcision. So here's a further idea that for the sake of Israel, for the sake of Avraham. Now, but what does that mean for the sake of Avraham? So first of all, Avram is always connected to the attribute of chesed, loving kindness. And we're told that this is the attribute through which God created the world. Olam chesed yibaneh. A world of chesed God will build. So Avram is the archetypal personality that is called the Merkavah, the chariot through which God creates the world. Avram is the chariot. He's the archetypal figure that represents the very purpose for creation and the means to which God created. And then we'll take this one step further. The numerical value of Avraham is 248, which equals B'Tselem Elokim, in the image of God. So that's how all of humanity is created, in the image of God. But here we have this illusion that the image that God was looking to, the stamp, was Abraham. So here we've brought four different sources for strengthening this idea in the Song of Azinu, that when God divided up the nations and gave them their due inheritance that he did it according to the number of Bnei Israel. So the 70 archetypal nations were established because in the future, there would be 70 archetypal souls in Israel. So the very next verse after this one in the Parsha is a very, very important verse, and it's really a continuation. And it says, Ki chelek Hashem amo, Yaakov chevel nachalato, that a portion of God is his people. Yaakov is the, let's get the right translation. Yaakov is the lot of his inheritance. So this goes very well with the first verse that we were saying, because it's talking about the nations getting their inheritance. But here it says, Chelek Hashem amo. The portion of God is his people. So this is one of the verses that's brought along with that a human being is created in the image of God, and God blew into the nostrils of Adam the soul of life, nishmat chayim. But this is also that ki chelek Hashem amo, a portion of God is his people. Now this is narrowing it down to the Jewish people. It's based on the bigger picture of God blowing the soul of life into all of humanity. And all of humanity has a spark of God. But here it's saying that there's a special inheritance, a special portion that Yaakov gets from God. And that's why in our verse, all the nations of the world get their inheritance through Yaakov, through the 70 souls of Yaakov. So let's jump for a minute to the Shema. The Shema is the cardinal statement of faith in Judaism. And there are two big letters. Here we talked about a small letter, hey, in the word Bihi Baram. But here we're talking about two letters. It's the only verse in the Tanakh that have two large letters. And the two letters are the last letter of Shema, hear, O Israel, a big ayin, and the last letter of the word echad, that God is one. And ayin and dalet spell aid, witness. And so this already tells the Jewish people what their mission in the world is to be a witness to God of God's oneness. And this comes back to Avram, that Avram's mission was to spread the light, the love, the knowledge of God's oneness and to bring the whole world together. And that will be the mission until Mashiach comes. That is the mission of the Jewish people, is to bring the whole world together in an understanding and worship of one God. And so this mission is maybe expressed best by Isaiah. And he did it in just a few words, that Israel would be or goyim, a light unto the nations. He got it down to two words, a light to the nations. So he didn't, Isaiah picked his words very carefully, because the idea of light is connected to the soul. That not only will there be a, let's say, a physical global village, which we more or less have now, but we're waiting for a spiritual global village. And one way we can see this is, I'm sure everyone heard about the earthquake in Morocco. So 200 years ago, there could have been an earthquake in Morocco, and no one in the world would know. No one in the world would know. Maybe as travelers, 8 years later, someone would get to China and mention there was an earthquake in Morocco. Now it's instantaneous. And in fact, Israel already has sent its search and rescue teams to Morocco. 200 years ago, if there was an earthquake, they're on their own. Like, where's help going to come from? Now we have a global village, but we don't have a spiritual global village. And so that is what we are waiting for. And so this light unto the nations, this is a spiritual light that we need to attain. The physical global village is also very important. It will be the vessel that the spiritual global village could be built upon. So here, the mission is to be a light unto the nations, and the soul is compared to light. Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam. The candle of God is the soul of humanity. Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam. So that's what Isaiah was alluding to. And since we're talking about the soul, this is a very, very good time because it's before Rosh Hashanah. And we just mentioned this idea that God blew into the nostrils of Adam Nishmat Chayim, the soul of life, Nishmat Chayim. All the other animals are called Nefesh Chaya, living souls. But it's only human beings that are called Nishmat Adam, the soul, Nishmat Chayim, the soul of life. And so this idea of blowing into the nostril, so this metaphor is brought up about blowing the shofar on Rosh Hashanah, because the Zohar says that when a person blows, and here it's alluded to blowing the shofar, it comes from the deepest depths of a person. If anyone has blown a shofar before, you have to take the breath from your very depths in order, especially let's say Tekiya Gedola, where you're blowing it for as long as you can. And so this idea is how the soul is coming from the inside of God. And this is different than any other creation. No other creation has the same quality of coming from the inside of the inside. So this is just a good Torah to remember on Rosh Hashanah, because Rosh Hashanah, it's like we are being reborn. The secret of the shofar, and hopefully everyone is following their Living with the Times. I believe on either Tuesday or Thursday, there'll be a Living with the Times about the sounds of the shofar, and it's connected to birth. And so here I'm just saying in short that this one of the secrets of hearing the shofar, it's like the birth pangs. And God is giving birth, as it were, to a new year. And we're giving birth, as it were, to ourselves, anew. And so this is all alluded to in this idea of being a light to the nations, the quality of soul and spirituality. And it all goes back to our verse that when God apportioned the inheritance of the 70 nations, it was according to the inheritance of the 70 archetypal souls of Israel.